Marcus Aurelius references the present and the present moment in his meditations. We see it frequently in Seneca and Epictetus as well. Each time they're saying, don't worry about the past, don't let anxiety about the future cripple you, embrace what is in front of you right now. Be here now, they're saying. Don't wish for things to be a certain way. Wish them to be as they are. Don't be somewhere else. Be here, and be here well. The chief task in life is simply this: to identify and separate matters so that I can say clearly to myself with are externals, not under my control, and which have to do with the choice I actually control. Where then do I look for good and evil? Not to uncontrollable externals, but within myself to the choices that are my own. When I see an anxious person, I ask myself, what do they want? For if a person wasn't wanting something outside of their own control, why would they be stricken by anxiety? Caretake this moment. Immerse yourself in its particulars. Respond to this person or that person, this challenge, this deed. Quit the evasions. Stop giving yourself needless trouble. It is time to really live, to fully inhabit the situation you happen to be in right now. You are not some disinterested bystander. Participate, exert yourself. Make the best use of what is in your power. What upsets people is not things themselves, but their judgments about these things. Man is not worried by real problems so much as by his imagined anxieties about real problems. 'Tis ruinous for the soul to be anxious about the future, and miserable in advance of misery, engulfed by anxiety that the things it desires might remain its own until the very end. For such a soul will never be at rest. By longing for things to come, it will lose the ability to enjoy present things. Seneca. It is likely that some troubles will befall us, but it is not a present fact. How often has the unexpected happened? How often has the expected never come to pass? And even though it is ordained to be, what does it avail to run out to meet your suffering? Perhaps it will come, perhaps not. In the meantime, it is not. So look forward to better things. Seneca. For the only safe harbor in this life's tossing, troubled sea is to refuse to be bothered about what the future will bring, and to stand ready and confident, squaring the breast to take without skulking or flinching whatever fortune hurls at us. Seneca. We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more from imagination than from reality. The mind at times fashions for itself false shapes of evil when there are no signs that point to any evil. It twists into the worst construction some word of doubtful meaning, or it fancies some personal grudge to be more serious than it really is, considering not how angry the enemy is, but to what lengths he may go if he is angry. But life is not worth living, and there is no limit to our sorrows if we indulge our fears to the greatest possible extent. In this matter, let prudence help you, and contemn with a resolute spirit even when it is in plain sight. If you cannot do this, counter one weakness with another, and temper your fear with hope. Seneca. True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future, not to amuse ourselves with either hopes or fears, but to rest satisfied, for he that is wants nothing. The greatest blessings of mankind are within us and within our reach. A wise man is content with his lot, whatever it may be, without wishing for what he has not. Seneca. Like Pimon Bemondi and Golakiadons to Hescadam Moramundi Himander and the Ligbeardi Stamberti Dance and the Bernabadanus and Bornbe brings back the agony of fear while foresight brings it on prematurely. No one confines his unhappiness to the present. Seneca. Me. What I advise you to do is not to be unhappy before the crisis comes. Some things torment us more than they out. Some torment us before they out, and some torment us when they ought not to torment us at all. We are in the habit of exaggerating, or imagining, or anticipating sorrow. Seneca. But life is very short and anxious for those who forget the past, neglect the present, and fear the future. Seneca. Epictetus says, "Cease to hope and you will cease to fear." The primary cause of both these ills is that instead of adapting ourselves to present circumstances, we send out thoughts too far ahead. Seneca. Set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, "Is this the condition that I feared?" Seneca. The first step, don't be anxious. Nature controls it all, and before long you'll be no one, nowhere, like Hadrian, like Augustus. The second step, concentrate on what you have to do. Fix your eyes on it. Remind yourself that your task is to be a good human being. Remind yourself what nature demands of people. Then do it without hesitation, and speak the truth as you see it, but with kindness, with humility, without hypocrisy. Marcus Aurelius. All you need are these: certainty of judgment in the present moment, action for the common good in the present moment, and an attitude of gratitude in the present moment for anything that comes your way. Marcus Aurelius. Does what's happened keep you from acting with justice, generosity, self-control, sanity, prudence, honesty, humility, straightforwardness, and all other qualities that allow a person's nature to fulfill itself? So remember this principle when something threatens to cause you pain. The thing itself was no misfortune at all. To endure it and prevail is great good fortune. Marcus Aurelius. If then it's not that the things you pursue or avoid are coming at you, but rather that you, in a sense, are seeking them out, at least try to keep your judgment of them steady, and they too will remain calm, and you won't be seen chasing after or fleeing from them. Marcus Aurelius. Don't let your reflection on the whole sweep of life crush you. Don't fill your mind with all the bad things that might still happen. Stay focused on the present situation and ask yourself why it's so unbearable and can't be survived. Leave the past behind, let the grand design take care of the future, and instead, only rightly guide the present to reverence and justice. Reverence so that you'll love what you've been allotted, for nature brought you both to each other. Justice so that you'll speak the truth freely and without evasion, and so that you'll act only as the law and value of things require. Marcus Aurelius. Frame your thoughts like this. You are an old person. You won't let yourself be enslaved by this any longer, no longer pulled like a puppet by every impulse, and you'll stop complaining about your present fortune or dreading the future. Marcus Aurelius. Today I escaped anxiety. Or no, I discarded it because it was within me, in my own perceptions, not outside. Marcus Aurelius. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Seneca clicked a tweet. If we can focus on making clear what parts of our day are within our control and what parts are not, we will not only be happier, we will have a distinct advantage over other people who fail to realize they are fighting an unwinnable battle. The Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday and Stephen Hanselman. Today, notice how often you look for more. That is, wanting the past to be more than what it was, different, better, still here, etc. Or wanting the future to unfold exactly as you expect, with hardly a thought as to how that might affect other people. When you do this, you're neglecting the present moment. Talk about ungrateful. There's a saying, attributed to Bill Keane, the cartoonist, worth remembering. Yesterday's the past, tomorrow's the future, but today is a gift. That's why it's called the present. This present is in our possession, but it has an expiration date, a quickly approaching one. If you enjoy all of it, it will be enough. It can last a whole lifetime. The Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday and Stephen Hanselman. The pragmatist can't worry about every possible outcome in advance. Think about it. Best case scenario. If the news turns out to be better than expected, all this time was wasted with needless fear. Worst case scenario, we were miserable for extra time by choice. And what better use could you make of that time? A day that could be your last. You want to spend it in worry? In what other area could you make some progress, while others might be sitting on the edges of their seat, passively awaiting some fate? Let the news come when it does. Be too busy to care. The Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday and Stephen Hanselman. What I would tell people who struggle with fear and anxiety is that it's natural. Just always try to be aware of the source of it. That's why I believe in rational anxiety and irrational anxiety. Rational is when you know why you're afraid and anxious. Irrational is when these thoughts just flood your mind and you don't know where they are coming from. So you're just scared and having a panic attack for no reason. I'm is like a river made up of the events which happen and a violent stream. For as soon as a thing has been seen, it is carried away and another comes in its place, and this will be carried away too. Marcus Aurelius. The Stoic Emperor. Marcus Aurelius highlights the transient nature of things. The nature of the universe is change, and we must flow alongside it, or suffer as we try and cling to the past, or expect things to remain the same. Often, it is the judgments we place on things that cause us to suffer, not the things themselves. As the Stoic Epictetus instructs in this quote, if we are able to develop the wisdom to form more favorable judgments, we can live happier lives. There is only one way to happiness, and that is to cease worrying about things which are beyond the power of our will. In a similar fashion to his previous quote above, Epictetus outlines the fact that we need to understand what we do, control, and what we don't, then focus our attention of the former while accepting the later. Today I escaped anxiety. Or no, I discarded it because it was within me, in my own perceptions, not outside. Marcus Aurelius. Aurelius here explains that much of our anxieties and worries are self-imposed. Over time, if we're not acting as gatekeepers of our beliefs and perception, we build up a collection of destructive and counterproductive beliefs. These cause us to look upon the world in artificially negative ways. In this quote, Epictetus hints at the fact that we can't always decide what happens to us. However, we can decide how we respond. That's where our power lies. Seneca makes a very good point. One fact of life is that we will always have to endure hardship. However, what's the point in making hardship worse by constantly complaining about it, rather than doing something to improve your situation? Marcus Aurelius was born in AD 121, considered one of the greatest Roman emperors to have ever lived, and wrote in his journal during the dull moments of a war campaign. In his journal, which inadvertently became the book Meditations, served as reminders for Stoic principles that focused on humility, self-awareness, service, death, nature, and more. Seneca was also a Roman Stoic philosopher, statesman, a tutor, and advisor to Nero. His work involves dozens of essays and 124 letters that involve topics like education, friendship, civil duty, moral obligation, humility, self-awareness, self-denial, and more. He had many admirers like Montaigne, Tom Wolfe, Emerson, and John Stuart Mill. I'm going to share some of my favorite principles from the Stoic school of philosophy, most of them pertaining to these three thinkers. If embraced and exercised regularly, Stoic tenets will champion your creativity, facilitate your workflow, and improve your overall state of mind and life. Creative work requires us to be vulnerable, committed, adaptive, and courageous. And that requires a mindset that can readily negate distractions or negative impulses while focusing our hearts and minds on what's important. It's a tough balancing act. Without a philosophy to guide our work and life, we will relentlessly succumb to our excuses and distractions. We will make the comfortable mistake of acting on our moods. I'm just not feeling it today. And not on our principles. It is not outside forces that make us feel something. It is what we tell ourselves that create our feelings. A blank document, canvas, or unmarked to-do list is not inherently stressful. It's your thoughts that are stressing you out. Many of us want to place blame and responsibility on external objects because it's easy to do, but the truth remains that all conflicts start internally, in our minds. When we flee from reality, a deadline, an urgent email, we are doing nothing but harming ourselves and undermining our self-discipline. The next time you run into an obstacle and feel resistance, don't look at what's around you. Instead, look within. When I first started my blog and called myself a writer, who could I look up to? The courses at my university were irrelevant to my aspirations and desires. Luckily, the internet provided access to great writers, their stories, work, and admonishments. I can point to someone I respect and say, look at the value they provide, their work ethic, their platform. That is worth learning from. Whatever you do, create apps, draw portraits, write books, or make animation films, there are individuals that you can learn from. You can study their story, works, techniques, successes, and failures. You can listen to interviews or even reach out to them by sending an email. You can discover patterns of success and apply it to your life. What's important to realize is that this isn't an exercise of comparison. If you don't get a book deal in 8 months, or if your product doesn't hit 1 in the first week, like your role model, that doesn't make you a failure. Instead, how can you learn from your heroes? How are their teachings and principles helping you grow, learn, and create? Everyone, no matter how successful, you can spend months or even years on a project, only to watch it be criticized or worse, ignored. I once worked on a project thinking that it would do fairly well. I spent an entire year on it, and it was my most vulnerable work to date. The outcome was similar to having a baby and all the doctors laughing out loud saying, "My goodness, that is an ugly baby." That's what failure feels like when you share a part of you. But recovering from that failure is a practice, a mindset. In fact, the lessons that I internalized from that experience is helping me do better work. The thinking goes, no failure, no growth. That troll on your Twitter feed, it's probably best to not respond. You don't need to tell them where the unfollow button is located. I'm positive they know. That email? I know it's fun connecting, but can it wait? In my own observations, people who do excellent work, who master their craft, do so because of their ability to prioritize. They honor every hour of their day. If we put cameras behind our heroes, would our work ethic compare? Our focus? Our determination to get things done? The other day I was genuinely shocked at how much time I spent spectating on Instagram, watching other people live their lives and eat boats of sushi. Although these little breaks throughout our days are okay, we must be mindful of how we interact with our distraction.